Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I am happy to do another special birthday tribute segment. This one is for Ralph Waite, who played our amazing father, John Walton. So if you are enjoying these various different segments, please do hit like and subscribe. Ralph was born in White Plains, New York on June 22nd, 1928. And in the book Goodnight, John Boy, Earl Hamner said this about Ralph Waite. Ralph Waite was signed to play the father. Ralph took an interesting road on his way to becoming an actor. After earning his BA at Bushnell University, Ralph became a social caseworker in New York's Westchester County. Following that, he spent 3 years at the Yale School of Divinity, where he was a practicing Presbyterian minister. He left the ministry to take a job as religious editor at the publishing firm of Harper & Row, and finally he found his true calling, acting. In 1965's title role in the play Hogan's Goat was to become the true beginning to his lifelong career. In a speech, I once said that actors have rich gifts to give, and that Ralph Waite gave me a precious gift in his portrayal of the role inspired by my father, John Walton. In addition to Earl's lovely words, I pulled some biographical information about Ralph from the Internet Movie Database. So I'm assuming this is accurate. Sometimes you don't know who wrote those biographies, but let's go with it being relatively accurate. So after some initial theater work in New York, he moved to Hollywood, where he had bit parts in prestigious movies, including Cool Hand Luke and 5 Easy Pieces. One of those films was Last Summer, starring Richard Thomas. During his time on The Waltons, he was also able to do some other acting roles, including Roots, for which he received an Emmy nomination, the title role in The Secret Life of John Chapman, OHMS, Angel City, and The Gentleman Bandit. He also appeared in a few films, including On the Nickel, which he wrote and directed. The Waltons, which earned him an Emmy nomination, ended in 1981, and Waite ventured on to other TV character roles. His second TV series, The Mississippi, was produced by his company, Ralph Waite Productions, and he also went on to do much more theater. In 2009, he joined Days of Our Lives as Father Matt, how appropriate, playing a minister. And of course, in his later years, joined the cast of NCIS, playing the father of Mark Harmon. For many years, Waite had held passionate political ambitions. He twice ran unsuccessfully for a congressional seat in 1990 and 1998. A Palm Desert resident during his second attempt, the 70-year-old Californian was a Democrat, hopeful for a seat left by the late Sonny Bono after his fatal skiing accident in 1998. He was ultimately defeated by Bono's widow, Mary Bono. Ralph died in Palm Desert, California on February 13, 2014, at age 85. He's survived by his third wife, Linda East, whom he married in 1982, and 2 daughters from his first marriage. Some other pieces of trivia regarding Ralph: that John Walton Sr., Waite's character on The Waltons, was ranked number 3 by TV Guide in its list of the 50 greatest TV dads of all time on June 20th, 2004 issue. He appeared on the front cover of TV Guide 5 times. He served in the United States Marine Corps for 2 years. He did not want to play the lead role in the Walton series because he didn't want to be committed to doing a long-running TV series, but Earl Hamner Jr. encouraged him to do so. I also had heard Ralph say that his agent had said, Ralph wanted to go back and do theater because he felt that that was really what true actors did, that TV was a little maybe frivolous and didn't challenge actors in the same way as theater. But his agent said, hey, look, TV pays better. You'll make a little bit of money, the show won't last, and then you'll go back to New York. Well, fortunately, they proved all of that wrong, didn't we, with all those years of success on The Waltons. Besides so many amazing episodes and scenes, as John Walton. During the course of the Waltons, he also directed 16 episodes. He had a unique directing style that, as I have been looking back at episodes, I find myself appreciating more and more. He always wanted things to seem very real. So for both himself and as a director for the actors he was directing. As an actor, with the kind of training that he had that was all based in creating really believable characters and having honest, truthful delivery of what was happening, he also felt that way about how things were shot and staged. He wanted it to seem like real life. People don't tend to be stilted and stand stiffly when they're talking, unless it's something about the situation that causes them to feel that way. He chose some unique camera choices that I enjoyed. Particularly, I think it was exemplified in the episode The Fawn, where there's a shot of John's working on the truck, and the kids are going off to school, and you see all the feet of the children going by. So you're just seeing the bottom from the camera, the bottom half of legs. And then you see 4 little legs go by, which is the fawn. And then you hear him say, that Aaron can't take the fawn to school. And then you see the Aaron go back with the legs of the fawn. We didn't need to see all of our faces to tell that piece of the story. I also like this nice long shot in the barn of Olivia and Aaron and the deer as Aaron advocated for Lance. And then a little later on, there was another great shot of the kids peeking through the boards in the barn, and then where Ben turns. And that's what I enjoyed about his camera work. Ben's turn of head motivated the camera then going to see what Ben was looking at and created a new camera angle that wasn't just sort of arbitrarily edited in. So to me, that's good direction and good camera work. I've spoken often about the amazing chemistry between John and Olivia Walton as played by Ralph and Michael. And we all know how much they loved each other in real life. So I don't know if Ralph had a favorite episode of those two characters, but Michael has talked about the anniversary being her favorite for their two characters. And she has often said that in working with Ralph, all she had to do was listen to him, look at him and listen to him and respond to him, that he gave her so much to play off of that it made her job so easy. But there's a definite art as an actor to knowing how to just really listen and react. And Michael was wonderful at that, as was Ralph. Even within the character of John Walton, who was a good guy, had great integrity, was kind, caring, compassionate, but he really stood up for what he felt was right. And that was a lot like Ralph in real life. We still got to see a fair bit of range from him. He could be funny and teasing and good-natured and kind and gentle, but we saw he could be tough and he could be harsh when he needed to be. We saw that again in The Boy from the CCC when he catches Gino stealing the money, and he stands there in this shadowed shot with this shotgun, and he's a pretty scary presence in that moment. I've also spoken many times about the compassion and gentleness and caring that we would see in John in those circumstances where he had to read these heartbreaking letters, like when Kurt passed away and he reads Kurt's letter to me and his son and the family, and also the letter he read of GW's to Aaron when GW dies. So those were particularly heart-wrenching, bring tears to your eyes sort of scenes. And he had so many lovely scenes with the children and with Olivia, and that were just so heartwarming. So we got to see that side of him. And I thought he was so adorable with the children, and that wonderful, to me, one of the best ad libs in The Outrage with John Curtis, when John Curtis just suddenly pipes up about, "I got new pants."
I got new pants.
I see that. Who got you those? Your mommy?
No, from Pat.
From Pat? Where's she live, on the next farm?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But he goes right with it and just plays along, and how wonderful that he did that, because then the editors were able to keep that spontaneous, beautiful moment in the final edit. We saw him with several of his grandchildren in A Day of Thanks on Walton's Mountain, one of our first reunion movies, where he's got John Curtis and Ginny and is just sitting there so sweetly reading to the children, and just loved him in those moments. He was so good with the children, and so there and playful with them, and it was very sweet to see. He was a deeply complex man. He really cared about the little man, both on and off camera. He would really go to bat for cast members. I think Ralph would have made a wonderful congressman, because he really did believe in fighting for those who really needed help and who didn't feel like they had a voice. And he was willing to be that voice. And he, along with the other adults on the show, really helped to keep the scripts strong and truthful, and he played every scene honestly. And the greatest compliment I think actors can give other actors, or people can give other actors, is when you don't see them acting. And as an actor, that's your goal. Just never let them catch you acting. You want the audience to feel like you are exactly that character, and to totally believe what you're doing there, as opposed to someone kind of playing at and trying to show you how they think that is, and overacting, or whatever. But Ralph just didn't do that. There was always a twinkle in those baby blues. He referred to his eyes. He's like, "How are the baby blues?" And they really did twinkle. So that sense of humor was evident so much of the time, and it helped keep the energy up, particularly around the kitchen table when we were spending endless hours and it was hot and you felt like the air was being sucked out of the room, and we'd been doing it forever and the lights were hot, and he would help keep the energy up by pretending to sing off key. I think he could sing on key, but he tended to pretend like he couldn't, and telling off-color jokes to all of us, which of course made us giggle and think that we were being let in on a grown-up joke, which we were. He was very, very special. I was able to attend the memorial service for Ralph out in Palm Desert, and along with many of my castmates and Earl Hamner and his wife. And one thing that was really interesting to me, I knew Ralph on the set. I knew him as John Walton. My interactions with him were all pretty much revolved around the Waltons and things for the Waltons. And then to attend this memorial and see and hear all the people who spoke that knew Ralph from other areas of his life, whether it was from being part of AA or things in his own community. I saw a whole other side of his life that I didn't really know, because he could be a very private person and didn't share a lot of that. So it was an eye-opener to me to see how much he was loved, not just by us and by Walton fans, but by people in other areas and other people's lives that he had impacted on so many levels. So a real tribute indeed to Ralph. Thank you for joining me for this birthday tribute to Ralph Waite and his amazing legacy. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons, about more episodes, and more of your questions in an Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.